Welcome to Waterside Chat. Tom Sadler talks with guests who depend on healthy oceans and fisheries for their recreation and livelihoods. And now, let's get started.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's Waterside Chat. I'm your host, Tom Sadler, the Deputy Director of the Marine Fish Conservation Network. It is my real pleasure and delight to welcome Steve Duda to the show. Steve's title is the Director of Fishtails for Patagonia, but that delightful and suitable title barely scratches the surface of who Steve Duda is. He has an impressive background in journalism, fly fishing, and music. He has written wonderfully entertaining book, River Songs, that chronicles the lessons he's learned from fly fishing. He was the editor of Fly Fish Journal and founding editor at Boise Weekly. His byline has appeared in Rolling Stone, Huffington Post, and many others. He's an accomplished Seattle-based musician. I'm excited he could join us. This afternoon, we'll learn about Steve, his passion for writing and music, and his work with Patagonia. Steve, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here.
Well,
it's nice to see you again, too, where we go way back.
Too far back. But, back when I got started, when I got to know you, I actually had hair, right?
Well, you are handsome as ever, sir.
Oh, you're too kind. You are too kind. So let's talk about Steve Duda. Where are you from originally?
Originally, I am from Detroit, Michigan.
Really?
And grew up in Detroit, went to school in Detroit, and I left there pretty quickly after leaving college. My alma mater is Michigan State University there in East Lansing, Michigan.
So Michigan State University holds a warm place in my heart. As you know, I was the coach for the Michigan State University Fly Gals. So it's that's one of the second favorite place to brook trout fish is up in the Osable off outside of Grayling. So
one question, did you beat Michigan?
Well, this was this was a non-competitive experience. Coaching. This was coaching young ladies who wanted to get into fish biology, and their head of the department said, "You're going to learn how to fly fish first." So
that's great.
I got the call anyway. So Michigan State University, how'd you get into journalism?
I got into journalism because I was passionate about it. I started actually creating little punk rock fanzines.
Really?
When I was like 14, 15 years old. I go to punk rock shows, sneak out of the house, talk to bands at the shows, and come home and, put them together. And then somehow mimeograph them or copy them, staple them together, and just take them to record stores and leave them on the shelves.
I wonder how many of our audiences know what a mimeograph is.
Yeah, I think I might be my age there. But that was the way a lot of folks got started back in the day. Just like that whole DIY culture, that whole do-it-yourself culture, which has informed really my work ever since then. Really.
Well, and many of us would go into the area where the mimeograph machine is huff the mimeograph fumes. Oh my goodness. So one of the things early on that made me a fan of the character Steve Duda was your disdain for commas. Where did that come from?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily dislike commas so much as I prefer the M dash.
And
I think also I got to say, I'm not picking on commas. They're just sort of there's a lot of overuse.
Right.
Like let's strip things down. Let's get things down to the bone. Really, let's get rid of the commas. Let's get rid of the semicolons. Now, if you want to talk grudges,
yeah,
I got a grudge against the semicolon.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember the writer who said it, Tom, but he said, the only thing a semicolon does is prove you went to college. So well, I'm not a big fan of the semicolon. I'm a bit of a writer my entire career. I don't think I've ever used a semicolon. So
really?
Like if we're cutting things, if we're cutting budgets, if we're stripping down things down to the bare bones, let's cut the semicolon.
That's so it's interesting. Through my journalism experiences, certain things have sort of become like guidelines, if you will. Like I um I twigged to your, overuse of commas. And so when I write now, I kind of self-edit and say, am I using more commas than Steve Duda would approve? And so now I'm going to have to say, wow, do I really need to use a semicolon here?
Get rid
And
of
could
the
I get away
semicolon.
with M dash? And our
The most
delightful.
pretentious punctuation. We got to get rid of the pretentious punctuation, Tom.
So there is um an internal to the Marine Fish Conservation Network editorial group about commas and M dashes and semicolons. And so this will be an instructive part of that conversation in the future. And Joe Knight knows exactly what I'm talking about, and so does Colin.
Okay.
So we'll have it. But I think that's one of the things that I enjoyed about reading your stuff has always been that stripping to the essence. And is that something you look for a lot when you're looking at stuff that's submitted to you?
Absolutely. I really do believe in writing. Um, well, in really aggressively editing my own work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I can tell as a longtime editor when someone has done the same thing with their writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just careless mistakes. It's not just punctuation. It's overuse of language or overuse of adjectives and adverbs, right? We should be letting the verbs do the work most of the
Right.
time in our writing. I don't want this to be an instruction session or anything, but
Oh, I do.
but I mean, I think it is important to really make sure that your writing is lean, to the point, and doesn't really carry a lot of extraneous weight. That's really important, I think, in writing, at least for me. And a lot of this, Tom, gets into style.
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously is a personal choice. But for me, I like to keep my sentences short and declarative. I like to limit use of punctuation a lot of times, as we've already been over. And I like to make sure that, the words mean something. We're not sprinkling just extra words in there to make ourselves sound smarter or to, I don't know, just adjectives and adverbs. They're just, well, it's not like seasoning. It's not like salt and pepper. We don't need a whole bunch of it.
Well, it is. This is part. It's. I couldn't agree with you more. But it is important because one of the things that is a part of the work that the network does does communications, and we have had series talking about how to be a better communicator. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here was, I mean, you are a well-established, exceptional editor and writer, and so conversations like this are particularly helpful when people are coming into the storytelling world, talking about how they present messages that, points of view of yours, like yours, are important, I think. So I appreciate what you're saying. And I think I try to incorporate that into my work at the network. And so having someone as seasoned and established as you validating that is good for me. So
It's funny, I think, Tom, just speaking about messaging in general, how not only we've seen it change in the last 25 years, but we also seen the importance of it gain more magnitude, right? Everything now is messaging. As
right.
our attention spans shrink, the importance of messaging becomes exponentially more important. We have such a short time to convey our message, that those messages have to be powerful, really. And maybe this gets back to the editing conversation we were just in. But those messages have to be short. They have to be powerful. They have to be pithy to break through that noise, I think. Right?
I do.
extraneous words and sorts of things. Those get chopped away. Or they get lost in the noise. So we have to make sure we're maintaining signal and getting rid of the noise, I think.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and there's some history there, and you look at Hemingway is a perfect example of someone who just wrote in very short declarative boom 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 boom. But I think now it is more important that we are able to use our words efficiently as much as we use them effectively, right? Does that
Mm-hmm.
sound
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard some marketing folks speak saying you have 7 seconds, you have 5 seconds, you have
Mhm.
3 seconds to get your message across before attention spans drift elsewhere.
Sure.
It's not a lot of time.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, there's the military parallel to this is bottom line up front, right? They put a bluff marker at the top of memos, right? This is the important stuff, right? You can fill in the background after that, but
TLDR,
yeah, yeah,
too long.
TLDR, exactly. Um, so tell me, Fly Fish Journal, how did that come about?
Fly Fish Journal had been around for just 2 years when I joined as editor. The first year was one issue, the second year was one issue, and they decided to expand. And when the Fly Fish Journal started, no one gave it a shot. No one gave it a chance. Everyone said, this will never work.
I remember this conversation.
The world does not need a literary fly fishing magazine.
Yep.
that's
Yep.
that's $15. It's photo heavy. It's printed on really nice paper. No way. Forget about it. Not going to work. And here it is. I think they're 20 years later,
Yeah.
and it's still thriving in an environment that says print is dead, right? So not only are magazines like Surfer's Journal, Fly Fish Journal, Snowboarder's Journal, those sorts of magazines thriving, but in a way they set a new standard for print. So now if you go to, if you can find a magazine store, there's a lot of these journals out there now. So it set that template. For me, though, Tom, it allowed and opened up a new forum for new voices in fly fishing literature. And you and I both know that fly fishing literature goes back hundreds and hundreds of years and has included some amazing voices. Jim Harrison, you mentioned Hemingway, Tom McGuane, Raymond Carver, John Gierak, David James Duncan, Brodigan, Howell Raines. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So to continue that legacy was really an honor for me to be chosen to do that. And I thought the way to do that was to open that up, open the umbrella, include new voices, start thinking about how that tradition can evolve rather than looking back with nostalgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Fly Fish Journal has been incredibly successful in that way. Jason Rolfe, who's the editor now, is doing an amazing job with the Fly Fish Journal. And you look at the folks who have come out of that magazine, not only the writers, but the photographers are the folks who are really making, who are defining the culture of our sport right now. And that's one of the cool things I think about fly fishing too, Tom, is that the culture of the sport is so strong. There's not only great fly fishing writers, there's great photographers, there's great visual artists, there's great painters, watercolor, oils, poets, all of it. So we're fortunate to have that tradition and to have that legacy. Pickleball doesn't do that.
Right, exactly right. Tennis, golf, opera. Right.
I mean, some sports aspire to that. Like some sports do have really established literary traditions. Mountaineering, baseball, horse racing, even back in the day.
Sure.
But I think they're fighting for second place at this point.
Well, and here's the thing that's always intrigued me about fly fishing writing is that it has distinguished itself, I think, in Mount and Fly Fish Journal is a exemplar of this, is that it wasn't the traditional Joe and me went fishing, right? It's there it captured the heart and soul of those people who go out and fly fish. And it talks about the experience. As you know, while we were in the green room, we were talking about brook trout fishing. I was explaining to Colin how, it's the experience that makes it memorable, more than just the numbers of fish, right? It's the whole experience. And I think fly fishing magazines and literature have done a good job of capturing that. But what it has also done is expose to people the cultural ethic, and that's of conservation and an appreciation for the environs where trout live, right? To quote another fly fishing writer. And it's, I think, and disagree with me if you don't agree, but it's that the work that Fly Fish Journal and other other platforms of that ilk has done is exposed people to more than just the Joe and me. Here's how you tie a blood knot. Here's how you tie a clinch knot. But here's what the experience is. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think, Tom, as fly anglers, we get to experience nature at its robust best. We get to see sometimes abundance because we're actually out there. We also get to see the opposite. So we know what that looks like too. And I think the math then gets really easy for us, right? What we do to nature, we also do to ourselves, right? How we treat nature, how we treat rivers, how we treat fish. Essentially, it comes back to us. That's how we treat ourselves at the end. That's pretty simple math. And I think because we're out there on the front lines, we understand that at a very, very basic level, right? It gets in our bones. So we're compelled to be activists for clean water and wild fish. I mean, to not do something like that and to be a fly angler is hypocrisy.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's, to me, so I'm going to transition now to the book, right? And ask, are you comfortable reading a little bit from the book?
Sure, 100%.
Would you read the beginning? This is what drew me in. And so if you're comfortable with it, the opening is called Lessons, and it's a page and a half. But I think it captures what we were just talking about. But it is the element of that statement you made about that, it's hypocrisy if we don't take care of those places that we enjoy. So are you comfortable with that? Would you be willing to?
I will.
Awesome.
I would love to. I like this piece because I think one of the things this piece reflects is that the idea that as fly anglers, we are allowed to truly appreciate something. We're allowed to truly love something, right? We're exposed to the best of nature. We're exposed to wonder all of the time. Like we stand in these amazing places. And we're humbled by the beauty of nature.
And then we're passionate of in its defense.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So this piece opens my book River Songs, and it's called it's the foreword. So it sets the tone for what I think the messages in this book are. It's a piece called Lessons. Fly fishing teaches us a few things about a few things. We know which way is north and which direction the winds blow when the weather's about to turn. We can stop the bleeding, patch the leaks, and always have duct tape handy. We know a few good knots, a few good jokes, and can curse in a handful of languages. We can pitch a tent in the dark and point to a few constellations. We know how to ford a river, build a fire, and brew a cup of coffee. We can open a beer with almost anything. We're good sports and gracious winners who are used to long odds and making friends with failure. We are blessed with a vast reservoir of hope, and we trust that better outcomes and brighter prospects, the next cast, the next run, the next day, are just around the next bend. We're a family of enthusiastic activists, weirdos, and obsessives, exploring the peculiar back alleys, side tracks, and secret rooms of our sport. Fly fishing isn't just one thing, it's a whirling ball of bamboo rods, blue lining, and bass. It's poetry, permit, and the plotting to bring down a deadbeat dam. It's tarpon, tenkara, and the alchemy of old fishing caps. It's carp, conservation, and keeping a cigar lit in a sideways gully washer. It's steelhead, shore lunches, and the beauty of native fish. It's strange and beautiful, beautifully strange, and it's what we do. Most of all, this is a family that understands and appreciates the enormity, wildness, and wonder of the outdoors. Together we stand in its light with humility, appreciation, and the determination not to lose what we love. When you try to explain these things, they might sound silly, absurd, or a waste of time. But more than anything, we understand that having a compass, knowing which way the wind blows, and finding shelter from a storm count for something. And if a ridiculous activity like fly fishing can help us be a generous friend, point us toward excellence, and encourage a profound and abiding love for this planet, then spending time sitting on a riverbank watching clouds pass overhead seems to be an excellent way to spend our days. That lesson is as real as it gets.
Thank you, my friend. It
You're
is,
welcome.
to me, the essence of the whole book starts right there, and it's a lot of what you and I do, and many, many others do, is captured in those words. And I really, really couldn't be happier that you were able to get it down on paper and out into the hands of people. We will make sure that it's easily accessible in the show notes. But what surprised you about writing this book?
You know, I think, Tom, as a writer, we always aspire to writing a book. I certainly have. And we all think, man, is that going to be cool when that book comes out? And it is cool when your book comes out. I just had no idea how cool it would be. It's been one of the best experiences of my life. And I would encourage anybody out there who has a dream of writing a book, get out there and do it, man, because it's super cool. It's awesome. It's so fun. It's so rewarding. You know, it's not going to put you in a higher tax bracket these days, but just doing that for the sake of doing it is really, really gratifying.
If you could go back and add one more story, would you do it?
That's an interesting question because there was a story in the book that got pulled at the last minute because of copyright issues. I was been a big fan of the writer Raymond Carver, and I went to the town he lived in for most of his adult life, Port Angeles, Washington, and I spent a couple of weeks up there, sort of chasing his ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And explaining or talking about how he viewed fishing and what it did for his life and for his writing. And I used a lot of excerpts from his poetry, from his short stories. And his widow wasn't super crazy about them,
Uh-huh.
and wouldn't grant permission to use them. because she obviously has control of his estate.
Sure, of course.
I was super fond of that piece, and obviously super fond of Carver, and I would have loved to have seen that piece in the book.
Gotcha.
Maybe someday, Tom, we'll
Yeah.
get it in there.
Is there another book in you?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, my publisher, Mountaineers, and I are just about done with the next agreement for the next book. It's looking like fall of 26.
Wow.
So I've already been typing away, gathering some thoughts, outlining some ideas, and yeah, there's going to be another one.
And like, where's it going?
Well, this one's going to be a little bit different. Obviously, the lens which I view the world as fly fishing in this
right.
one too. And so this one it's going to have a novella. I don't know how much I should say, but I guess I'll say it to you, Tom. But just as long as you keep it to yourself.
Don't get yourself in trouble with your publishers, Dave.
Okay, all right. We'll just say
stay tuned. I'll tell you. You'll learn new. You'll learn soon enough.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. But we do go to Guyana. We go a little bit afield, and we also stay in the Pacific Northwest. So
awesome.
A lot of range, a lot of fun, a lot of wild stories. It's going to be cool.
One of my favorite stories, I think, in River Songs has to do with your visit to Scotland, which I will come back to. But River Songs recently won an award. Am I correct?
Yeah, won an Independent Publishers Award, which I was super stoked because one of the things that has been really cool about publishing this book is my publisher, Mountaineers Books, who are based here in Seattle, where I live, and they usually do like mountaineering guides and foraging stuff, just real outdoor how-to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they took a chance on me because I was their first fly fishing book. And the thing I like about Mountaineers is that they're small enough where I feel like I'm dealing with real human beings who care about the projects they're working on, but they're big enough so that the book gets everywhere it should be. They're also a nonprofit and do a lot of work for our environment. Awesome. That's important to me too. So to have the book do so well, both for me and for them, has been awesome. And to be able to get the chance to do it again, Tom, is really, really super cool. So I'm super happy with that.
That sort of leads me into what tempted you away from Fly Fish Journal to come to work for the Happy Campers at Patagonia?
I had done stints in the corporate world previously. I had worked for Amazon and I'd worked for Microsoft, and I was pretty convinced that I was done with our corporate overlords. But Patagonia is a different beast entirely.
It's definitely a different beast, isn't it?
And it was a pretty easy decision to work for a company that has the values Patagonia has, and that does things the way Patagonia does, that's fiercely independent like Patagonia is, that has a mission that we all can get behind. I mentioned that I work for Amazon, and I think if Amazon ran their business the way Patagonia does, this would be a different world.
For sure.
If Microsoft did it, this would be a different world.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm happy to work for Patagonia. It was a pretty easy decision, to tell you the truth.
I mean, you and I have both spent time with Shenard, and he's a remarkable human being, and it's interesting if you think about the Bezos and Zuckerberg and the others of that cadre. If if they all emulated Yvon Chouinard, we'd be in a hell of a lot better place. I agree with you. I agree
Mhm.
with you. I mean, it's one of the most self-effacing people I've ever known, and um, fun guy to hang out with.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in meetings with both Bezos and YC, and Bezos was a ruthless character,
Hmm.
and that was reflected in the institution that he ran, Amazon.com. I mean, they're still ruthless. I think that's
Hmm.
the word to describe that. YC, I would just, if I had one word to describe him, well, I'll use two: fiercely independent.
Hmm.
And I think, if they say an institution is the length and shadow of one person, that I think is reflected in Patagonia. Fiercely independent, right?
Yeah, I mean that's been
And
my experience.
would
Um,
I rather be with the ruthless, mean kids, or would I rather be with the weirdo, independent kids?
yeah,
That's a pretty easy one for me for me to.
yeah, it is. You know, I think you and I have spent more time bumping into each other in the Patagonia booth at fly fishing shows than anywhere else. Probably to our betterment. Um, but so you came to work. So y- you are your title is director of fish tales, right?
A little correction there, Tom.
Okay.
It's head of fishtail, so it's
Oh, head of
a
fish tales.
little
I
more.
love it. I love it. I love it. Um, so how do you gather the stories? How do you bring tales to the world through Patagonia?
Mhm. That is the easy part,
Okay.
Tom, because we have a lot of writers.
Hmm.
You know, we're lucky that we have writers who want to work for us, and I think it's because
Sure.
of the character of the company, right? We attract creative, talented people,
Uh-huh.
and that's not only the people who work 9 to 5 for Patagonia, but the people who want to contribute to our journals and our storytelling and our filmmaking. Um, all of those people believe in the mission. It's a little weird, Tom, because before I started working at Patagonia, you would hear people who worked for them at the Patagonia booth
Hmm.
um, talking effusively about how great it was. And I'm like, man, that's some Kool-Aid.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And now, as someone who works for them, sometimes I'll stop myself because I'm like, I think, wow, hold on, because you don't want to sound like like you're preaching or
Kool-Aid
anything.
drinker.
A Kool-Aid drinker, exactly. But I mean, I guess if you can do it, you can talk about it, right? If you do cool things, you can talk about cool things. Um, so yeah, I think that's why we have great writers, great photographers, and great filmmakers who want to work for us.
Is it when you look at this from an editorial point of view, are you looking at um, messaging that's corporate vision oriented or product oriented or experience driven? Kind of how do you filter through? I mean, obviously you get to pick from the best of the best, and how do you decide what you're going to put out under the Patagonia masthead, if you will?
Well, I mean, we have our storytelling, which most people see. We have
Hmm.
the really aspirational stories
Hmm.
that look great, highly polished, and then we have the other stuff that we do behind the scenes and just some of our messaging that
Hmm.
even goes around our product. Telling people that we're using recycled materials or we've knocked off PFAS out of our
Right.
gear, stuff like that. Um, but in terms of like selecting those stories, we have company values that we all sort of um, try to underscore in our work. But for me, it's simple. One of the lines we used a couple of years ago on the fly fishing team was connect and protect.
Okay.
I like both of those two concepts. I like the way they fit together. I like the way they sound together. And I think for me, it encapsulates really neatly what our mission is. We want to connect and build community. That's important in fly fishing. And it's unique in fly fishing too, I think, Tom. And we also want to protect what we love. So to get, that's a short phrase, but it's a big umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all that stuff can fit comfortably underneath it. So connect and protect is sort of the two guide words I use.
Uh-huh.
Keeps it simple, right?
Have you, as you look through your experience there, your time there, and are there stories? I mean, I noticed on your sweatshirt, "Protect Our Home Waters." That was a campaign, I guess, that and correct me if that's not the terminology you guys use, but a campaign to connect people to where they live.
Right.
You know, are there others? Um, are there other stories or films that came from that that campaign, if you will, that you particularly enjoyed?
One of the things that I always look back to as one of a huge win for us and really gratifying story to be a part of was what happened and what is happening down in the Klamath River.
Okay.
Bringing down those dams on the Klamath and seeing how a number of different communities came together to do something great for not only for the fish but for the environment and for the tribes that live along that water, and see how much it meant for the Klamath tribe and how hard they worked and how committed they were to that process. It was so fulfilling to see all of their work come to fruition. And not only just working at Patagonia, but my entire career, that was been one of the best experiences I've been part of in terms of telling someone's story, and seeing it come to life. It was really, really special and really unique. And if you see what's happening on the Klamath now, with how they're rehabilitating the area and what's happening with the fish coming back, just like they did on the Elwha River,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing work. Absolutely amazing work.
Is it fair of me to say that when Patagonia stepped out on dam removal, it was considered controversial?
Yeah, it was.
And that there were a number of people who were cautioning Patagonia not to um, poke that bear, and yet, correct me again if I'm wrong here, the experience, the lessons that can be learned from both Elwha and the Klamath Dam are should encourage people to follow that model and say, look, this is how you do it. You gave Patagonia and that team, your team gave voice to that, but it would have been very easy to be scared away from doing that. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, dam removal, as you know, Tom, even today, not the
Absolutely.
most popular thing. Still a hot topic politically, right? A lot of real opposition against it. And you were talking about YC.
Mhm.
That guy never been afraid of a fight.
Nope.
Not once. I mean, he's short in stature, man, but he is feisty.
I
And
wouldn't want to get in a fight with him.
and when you are willing to take a stand like that for something you believe in, that tells me something. I think it tells the world something. So he did it with dams. We're doing it with net pens, which also, I mean, there's a lot of corporate interests that say, hey, let's befoul our oceans. Let's poison our wild fish stocks for net pens. So we can put this poisonous something that pretends to be salmon on the plate. We took a leadership position in that. the dams, the hatcheries, we're fighting for inclusion, we're fighting for access. Those are bedrock principles, I think, Tom, for people who care about wild fish and clean water.
Yeah, I mean, this is what struck me until we get to the net pens and the hatcheries, and you Patagonia has not confined itself to just U.S. issues, right? And again, in the aquaculture world, we're seeing it emerging now, where it's been more developed in other countries. It's Speak to the sense of you all sharing the message of some of the dangers that other countries have seen and we could learn from.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite. Didn't
Oh,
understand.
so I mean, there was a film, I can't remember which one, that was around the hatcheries in, I think it was Iceland.
Hmm.
Did I get that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Harbaugh was telling me about that one. You have rung the bell, if you will. Is that resonating? Is it, you know, um, has it been useful?
I mean, I think, at least from my perspective, and I don't have any metrics to pass this up, I think the tide, in opinion, is
Hmm.
definitely turning, just getting some momentum against net pens.
Right.
Why is it happening? It's just simply being able to say what the facts on the ground are. When you see what these net pens can do, it's an easy decision what side to be on, really. At least for me.
I
You
got you.
know, and I think as an angler, right? I'll just make it personal for me. I love steelhead fishing on the Olympic Peninsula.
Right.
Absolutely love steelhead fishing. And there's a joke that always seems to get made in the parking lot as we're putting our boots on and putting our waders on and stringing up our fly rods to go out onto the water and try to catch a wild steelhead, which are, on the knife edge of extinction at
Absolutely.
the moment. Someone will always say, I hope I don't catch the last one.
Yeah.
How terrible is that? How sad
I,
is that? How did we get this position, right?
yeah.
So
And I'm sorry,
we,
go ahead.
as flyingers, we see that. Those are the front lines that we're on. So we know what's happening out there. That's why it's maybe a little more urgent for us. I
And
mean,
you're,
seeing a species go extinct, you don't see it happen. There's not like a big announcement. It happens incrementally. But we're out there, we see it.
yeah. And um, it's to your credit that that Patagonia is using its market position, if you will, to get those stories out there. I was fascinated by one of the films that you guys did recently in the marine world with Danny Renton and Sea Wilding.
Hmm.
I mean, that would just, where did you find him? That's awesome.
I do not know where we found him. That was put out by a different department than the fish team.
I gotcha.
But a great story. Just a great story.
Um,
Check it out at patagonia.com. You can see all of our films there, and read our stories as well.
all right. Well, I'm mindful of the time, so let me touch on the as on the entertainment side of the show here. Tell me a little bit about your musical career. I
Oh man.
mentioned Scotland, so that was like I'm reading along, oh, this is a great, like this is a great story, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're in Scotland. Oh, this is an interesting element here.
So
Not
yeah,
being able to fish, but having to go play music. So tell me a little bit about how that all came about.
that story is called Legendary Rivers I Didn't Fish.
Yeah.
And it's basically a tour diary of an overseas tour. I was with a band. mostly like carrying guitars and selling T-shirts, but occasionally hopping on stage with the banjo. Um, and as we're in the UK, in England and Scotland and Wales, from the back of the bus, I would see us pass over the legendary UK streams, the Spey, the Tay, you name it. We passed
Right.
over it
Yes.
and didn't fish it. So this is basically a tale of woe about not being able to fish these rivers, and the lessons that you sort of learn, or the lessons you're forced to learn about, well, I guess it would be called radical acceptance
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
patience.
Yeah, it comes with fly fishing, right? Radical acceptance and patience are probably as good a byword for fly fishing as anything other than that.
Exactly. Yeah.
You mentioned banjo as one of your instruments. What else do you play?
Play a little guitar, play a little banjo. Last like sort of rock band I was in, I did some singing. It was a band that did three-part harmonies, so luckily you couldn't hear me that much.
Hard. Three-part harmonies are hard, Steve. That's good stuff.
You just have to like close your ears and just remember your part.
Uh-huh.
And you can't listen to what the other guys are doing, or else you'll drift up and try to sing what they're singing, or to sing the melody or something. It's the first time I had ever done it, so it was kind of a unique experience for me. During COVID, couldn't play in bands anymore, obviously, so I started
Right.
building a little studio down in my basement and started buying synthesizers and sequencers and drum machines. And now I do what my girlfriend calls making bleep loops
Leap loops.
with synthesizers and drum machines and
Indeed.
sequencers, and yeah.
Is there a
So we're making
record,
electronic
or
music.
can we even say record? Is there a musical offering in the offing?
At this point, I'm just sort of playing for myself, but pretty ambitious when it comes to that sort of when documenting my art. So I imagine
Mhm.
in the near future, you might find something. Recordings with my band South Sound Tug and Barge are available pretty much wherever you find music.
Awesome.
Um, yeah.
You will be happy to know that I still have my South Sound Tug and Barge sticker on my traveling laptop. Uh,
Right on.
it will not come off. It's there. It's prominently displayed. And well, thank you. I really appreciate the work you have done before, the work you're doing now, the work you'll do in the future. It is voices like yours, and um, you know, big kudos to Patagonia for giving you the opportunity to get those voices out. It's, as I said earlier on, part of the network's mission or work is to work on communications, and having someone that we can look to Patagonia, to look to the work that you and your colleagues do, um, is particularly useful. And I think I've said it many times before, in the communications gets to be the redheaded stepchild of the advocacy world. It's lobbying, and it's um, policy making and blah blah
Hmm.
blah. And it's, to me, I think it's become more important to have strong communications chops as an advocacy organization. And so I applaud what you're doing. I applaud what Patagonia is doing. And um, it's really an important part of the work that has to get done to protect the things that we care about.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's really cool that my colleagues at Patagonia, of course, some of the best editors and writers I've ever worked with, are doing the same things in surf
Hmm.
and trail and snow sports and climbing. They're all out there advocating um, for their sports and all the things that their sports touch. So I'm doing it on the fly fishing side. We have a whole team that's out there doing it for their sports too. human-powered sports that are just to get you out in nature and allow you to sneak under the wire and be in places that you really should be. So,
and if I make sure I get this right, Patagonia Action Works is the advocacy outlet for folks to use.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Tom. If you're wherever you are, you can go to patagonia.com, go to ActionWorks, and find an organization near you who are out there fighting to make a difference and could use your help.
Again, we've said it earlier. If others had taken the path that Patagonia did, that Chenard took, we'd be in a better place. But thank you for making the time, Steve.
Hey man, thanks for having me. It's great to
really appreciate it.
Reconnect with you again, Tom.
Say again.
It's great to reconnect with you again.
Yeah, I hope if you get over this way, if you do a reading in the area, I'd love to introduce you to my local brook trout streams.
All right.
So, all right. Well, then I think we'll wrap it up for now and say again, thank you very much. Maybe we can get you on when the next book is out. Maybe when it's released, September of next year.
I'm going to hold you to that.
All right, my friend. Thanks so much. For our listeners and watchers today, that's the end of it. But we'll be scheduling another Waterside chat in the near future. Look for an email on that. And with that, I'll say thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
If you enjoyed this episode of Waterside Chat, share it with your friends and colleagues. You can check us out on YouTube or most podcast services. To stay up to date on Waterside Chats and the Marine Fish Conservation Network, sign up for emails at conservefish.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you at the next Waterside Chat.